12th century, they sought to express or preserve that knowledge in the landscape of Bornholm and Rennes Chateau. Lincoln and Haagensen were also able to demonstrate the exquisite detail of the geometry on Bornholm and show not only the incredible accuracy of the positioning of the churches, but also that the geometry itself is both elegant and purposeful. Incredibly, the Bornholm geometry contains solutions to ancient mathematical problems. An amazingly accurate method for calculation of circumference without using pi, the trisection of the angle, a mathematical problem that's exercised the greatest of minds for centuries, solved with incredible accuracy on the island of Bornholm. And again, there's that anachronistic presence of a fixed measure, the mile, a standard that wasn't supposed to have been established until 1593. Does the geometry of Bornholm and Rennes Chateau have something to teach us about our units of measure? We know that in the 18th century, the metre was defined scientifically as being 1/10,000,000th of a quadrant of the Earth's circumference, the distance from the pole to the equator. It follows, therefore, that the polar circumference of the Earth should be 40 million metres. In fact, a small error was made at the time of calculation, and the actual circumference turns out to be 7,467 metres longer. What's astonishing is that there is a far more accurate relationship between the measurement of the circumference of the Earth and the mile than there is between that measurement and the modern metre. Along with the familiar yard and foot measures, there's another often forgotten unit, the pole. 320 poles make 1 mile. 1 pole equals 198 inches. Take a closer look at these measures and you find a fascinating correlation. The diameter of a circle which has a circumference of 1 pole is exactly 63 inches. If you multiply this distance by 25 million, you reach a far closer approximation to the circumference of the Earth, 40,003,905 metres. Moreover, the easy division of 5 into this number suggests a measurement made in antiquity based on a pentagonal division of the Earth's circumference. It would take several programs to analyse the fine relationship between ancient and modern measure. However, investigating the measurement of the Earth provides conclusive evidence that the geometry on Bornholm was deliberately constructed. Although the positioning of these churches appears to be incredibly accurate, in some instances there is slight variation from theoretical perfection. Some of these anomalies have straightforward explanations. For instance, the Church of Vestermarie stands 21 metres northwest of its predicted position in the geometry. But this church was rebuilt in the 1880s, and it can be seen from the architect's drawings that the altar of the old church was in exactly the right place to conform to the pattern. The Bornholm geometry contains a great 5-pointed star. Curiously, the eastern tip of this star doesn't fall on the church of Bodilsker, as it should in theory, but on the adjoining tower, precisely on this enigmatic and otherwise inexplicable stone on the southeastern face. The placement of the church at Olsker was a more puzzling inaccuracy. Olsker is not in the right place. Olsker is 223 feet and 11 inches from its theoretical position. The breakthrough here came when Haagensen began to look at the relationship of the Bornholm placements to the Earth's axis. The geometry not only has its own internal logic, but also the whole structure aligns perfectly with the 4 cardinal points. When the position of Olsker is calculated using the geometry of a curved surface, i.e. the surface of the Earth, as opposed to a flat map surface, it was found that the proper geometric position for Olsker is only 11 feet 9 inches from its actual centre. the whole of the Bornholm geometry is demonstrating not only the incredible skill of its constructors, but is evidence that they had an advanced and sophisticated knowledge of the curvature of the earth and the means to measure it and place buildings upon it with incredible precision.
And then, of course, you could wonder if it was at all possible at those times to make anything like that, anything that accurate. And the answer is that it very well might have been, because we can see that exactly down in that area of Clairvaux, and contemporary with Bernhard of Clairvaux, there is a mathematician who gives lecture to his students, and his notes have survived, and we can see how he explains how one do this kind of measurement. It's very fascinating to see that our forefathers had capabilities that we maybe normally don't think they had. I mean, when you talk to people in general, they will tend to say that in the medieval time, people believed the earth was flat. Now, if you read these lectures that Hugo of Saxe-Victoire was giving, you can see that they have a much more advanced knowledge. He described the sphere of the earth very clearly to his pupils, and also describes how it's possible to measure it and all that. And from that he takes actually basic in a measurement done that much longer back from his time than he is from our time. So you can see that this knowledge goes far back in time.
The geometry alone indicates the sophistication of the 12th century architects, but the churches hint at even more concealed purpose and design. The conical roofs are a relatively recent addition. Originally, the 4 round churches would have looked like this, with tiered ramparts. The generally accepted interpretation of their design is that they are defensive structures. But if the churches did have a defensive function, then their positions in the landscape were poorly chosen. These openings, sometimes described as arrow slits, are impractical. They'd be useless for that purpose in the event of an attack. So what could their true purpose be? Well, it can be shown that the slits and holes in the inner and outer rotundas of Erstelas, at least, are designed to observe the rising and setting of the sun at the summer and winter solstices. All the round churches have this inner and outer rotunda, and alignment of 2 gaps in the wall at this distance apart provides a very accurate way of defining particular points on the horizon. The evidence suggests that the churches of Bornholm could be a network of calendrical observatories joined together by a precise geometry that is in turn locked into the curvature and division of the surface of the earth. However overwhelming the evidence may be, it's still tempting to put it all down to chance.
There have of course been that argument that all this is due to coincidence. That's an argument that comes up when they realize that it is there. All this accuracy is there. Everything is there. They can't deny that. So the next thing is, but they weren't able to do that. They couldn't do that. So therefore, it has to be coincidence. This is the main argument. This is the way around they talk. And that is the same thing then you could say about the pyramids, because they couldn't do that. So therefore, it's due to coincidence. The pyramid is due to pure coincidence. It's a pure coincidence that they could orientate it to north within 3 seconds of a degree, and all that we can see that they actually did. Coincidence. Of course, it can't be.
Too many apparently intelligent people have been distracted from this material because certain people who should be more careful about what they say have implied that this is pure fantasy and coincidence. If it were, I wouldn't still be wasting my time with it.
So I think eventually people will have to realize, and in particular the academic circles will have to realize that here is something that they have to consider, and that is there, and that it is not coincidence, and then they will have to come up with an explanation.
This is why it's particularly frustrating to find that there are people who still wish to rush around saying, oh, it's all fantasy, it's just pure imagination, it isn't there at all. What they're doing is wasting time. They're denying solid and demonstrable facts because those solid and demonstrable facts run counter to what such people have been taught and which they continue to teach. We're saying, no, you've got it all wrong. But this time we have proofs. So it must be looked at seriously.
This knowledge is here at the Earth at this time, and had been here actually for even thousands of years before that, and we know that. So it's just a question of finding a link between Bornholm to this knowledge.
All I've done is open the door. It's for people who have the expertise, who can understand what's here, who now have got the work to do. But the background to this story, the question of why this mystery is set, where it's set, in the little village of Rennes-le-Château in the south of France, and on the island of Bornholm in the Baltic Sea. These aspects of the story don't rely on hypotheses. They are pure statements of fact. What we have uncovered is a vast body of lost knowledge.
Medieval observatories and the measurement of the circumference of the Earth seem far removed from parchments, secret societies, hidden treasure, and the Holy Grail. The path of discovery has been long, and the clues have often been distracting. We've travelled quite a distance from Dan Brown's novel, a thriller that begins with the brutal murder of a man named Saunière. Did the real Béranger Saunière find a treasure? Is the Priory of Zion real? Did Mary Magdalene carry the bloodline of Christ to France 2 millennia ago? Perhaps we in turn need to murder the mystery of Béranger Saunière in order to get at the truth.
We should stop wasting time.